Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Personal Transformation Podcast. And one of the things we talk about here is motivation, but motivation doesn't last. Sometimes it feels good, and you wake up, you're full of energy, you're excited to face the day. Maybe the coffee machine is, squirted out some extra powerful coffee. You're energized, the sun is shining, and you're feeling great. Then all of a sudden, you have a day that is not like that. And the coffee machine is empty, and you kind of get out of the wrong side of bed and you stub your toes and you start cursing. And if you listen to my wife, everything bad happens in three. So there's going to be other stuff that comes and kicks us in the face. And it's on days like that where, I don't know, we just don't feel like getting after it. We don't feel like chasing our goals. And sometimes when we're pursuing big things, we can look at them in those moments and say, you know what, this is too much. It's too tough. And, so many people give up on their dreams and their goals when times get hard. And, I've definitely experienced that recently with the bodybuilding. There's definitely been moments along the journey where you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, am I capable of doing this? Have I got it? And so, I've invited Phebe Trotman here to have a conversation about resilience. And she's going to tell us a little bit about the book, Never Quit on a Bad Day. So Phebe, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's a pleasure and honor to be here today. And I was nodding my head as you're talking about, sometimes, we wake up on the wrong side of the bed or no coffee and things happen. So really looking forward to the conversation today.
It's funny, people, I've just competed at this Natural Olympia show and I did all right. We'll talk about placing in a moment because I think it'll set you up for an interesting conversation. But people will just assume that you're motivated all day, every day. And like, oh, Darren, you must be like so disciplined. And I'm like, no, I'm so not. It's a constant battle of willpower. Sometimes like I do wake up and everything feels good, but sometimes it feels like a slog. And, in my book, I talk about this idea of separation days. If you can win those days, you're moving forwards. But, you look like a smiley, happy person. You look like the life is going well for you. I can't even imagine that you have bad days. So, tell me, what's your experience? How have you found bad days and how have you persisted through them?
One of the things, it's so interesting because it's a choice and it's about being intentional. As you said, separation. There's going to be, let's talk athletics, let's talk, working out. There are times that I don't feel like going to boot camp because I know what's waiting for me. I know it's going to be a very challenging workout. I know I'm going to be close to wanting to throw up. I'm going to be sweating, all the things that I don't necessarily want to. And I think what is so important to recognize is, number one, focusing on those end goals. What is the reason and what are you working towards? Because anything that's great that you want to accomplish in life, there are going to be some uncomfortable pieces in that. And that's designed to stretch us. It's designed to see how badly do we want that end goal. And so that's what I focus on. And also it's about being intentional. It's about choosing to find things to smile about, and I right now, actually, I'm going through a very, very challenging season with my family in terms of my mom and my uncle with some health conditions, and I'm the caregiver. And there's been so many very hard days, yet I still choose to find things to smile about, even during the struggles. So I think it's just important that people remember we all have choices, and we choose what we get to focus on. We choose how to find something good in even those challenging seasons as well too. So yes, I am a happy, smiley person, but I definitely have my moments where I am frustrated. I don't want to do something, yet I choose to focus on the end result and do it anyways.
Okay, good. So you're not one of those constantly positive people that everything is going well and you've never actually experienced adversity. You actually get kind of life hitting you in the face. Okay, so that's good. So that kind of levels the playing field. Because I think one of the things that people think is that, there's these people, they just have it so easy. There's never any resistance. They just, things open, doors open for them. And they don't even have to, they step through. So, okay, well, let's talk about that. So
kick down doors, Dan. I kick down doors at times when you need to kick them down.
Yeah, I try and kick them down, but they're those ones where you're supposed to pull them, and those never go so well. So, what caused you to write this book? What was it that kind of made you think, I'm going to go through an excruciating process of writing stuff down and editing it for forever? What was it that caused you to kind of want to write this book, Never Quit?
Yeah, so I had it on my heart for several years to create something. I really wanted to create something to help, inspire, to encourage people, just because I've had so many incredible, I've learned so much over the years from so many people. And so I knew I wanted to create something I really wasn't sure what that was going to be. And I was with some friends and we were talking about kind of being entrepreneurs and what's next on our journey. And I shared that, it's been on my heart to create something. And they are the ones who suggested write a book. And at first I kind of was like, I don't know. Because writing really wasn't like I journal all the time and I was passionate about writing. And they kind of shared that writing a book, it isn't just about me, it's for the people that I could help. And when they said it like that, it just landed in a different way. And I knew if I was going to write a book, and I was open, I said, it has to do two things. Number one, it has to help and inspire people. And number two, I have to feel passionate about what I'm going to write about. And so I kind of went to bed, if you will, with that simmering on my head. And before I kind of went to bed, I was thinking more about it. And the month before, I had been inducted into the Coquitlam Sports Hall of Fame, and we had an induction ceremony, and they asked some questions about what has sport given me. And I shared so many of the life lessons that I've learned from sport. And I also shared, though, that a lot of the life lessons came from all the challenges that I've had in sport, not making a team, coming back from an injury, sitting on a bench, sometimes not even dressing for a game and wanting to play. And so pushing through all the tough stuff and the not so great stuff is what led to the national championship titles, the MVPs, the All-Americans, all the highlights. And so often we just see those. And as you said, so many people think that they just see the highlight reel, but they don't really know all the stuff that went in to get there. And that's when I got really excited about writing the book, because I wanted to highlight the tough stuff that people go through so that when people are reading, they know that they're not alone. The struggle might be different, the challenge might be different, but the fact is we all go through those tough moments.
It's funny, isn't it? And knowing your profile, and we can talk about this a little bit, is that people tend to not talk about that. They only talk about the shiny bits. So, hey, look at me, this is amazing. And I'm kind of guilty of it. I've just been, sharing some of the results from my competition the other week. And, there's definitely those aspects. But I'm trying to also talk explicitly about the bumpy bits along the road. Like this year, I got significantly injured. I had the worst injury I possibly had. It impacted my performance at a competition. And there were genuinely moments where I was like, what have you done? And I kind of really got down on myself and start beating myself up. It's very difficult to come on and talk about that on, say, Instagram or Facebook or something along those lines. So I think, well done for creating a vehicle where people can realize that there is adversity and everyone goes through adversity. Is there any kind of framework that you teach? Like, I've looked at this kind of change behavior element, and there's multiple different models. Is there any kind of frameworks or patterns of behavior that people go through when they experience adversity, and how they should come out at the other side of that?
Well, I think everyone goes through it in different ways. And I mean, one of the things with the book is it's a collection of short stories. And I did that intentionally because I wanted people to hear from people who, for different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different age groups, everything. And so, because I believe when we can learn from everybody. And so everybody kind of shares one of their struggle moments and what they did to push through. And there's a section at the end of the chapter, that says, it's called Reflections on Resilience. And it gives the reader a chance to kind of reflect on the story. There's some questions and there's a lesson they can pull out of it. And there are some commonalities that I think a lot of people who have gone through challenges lean into, especially when they're going to a challenge. One of the biggest one is perspective, is really, thinking of our situation almost like looking at it with a different pair of glasses, right? So we have our own lens that we're looking at the situation that we're experiencing. How can we pick up a different lens, put it on, and now look at that same situation with maybe more of a learning mindset? How can I grow out of this challenge? I think that is something that, was very common throughout all of it. And really, the second one, and we can go deeper into it, but realizing that it's not going to last forever. Like, a tough situation is, if you can push through and get to the other side, there's so much growth in that. And I talk about resilience as like a muscle. And, you be in bodybuilding, you understand that the only way to strengthen a muscle is you got to go against some resistance to make it stronger. And that's just like us in life. We have to go through those tough things, push through it. That's what builds our resilience muscle. And that prepares us for a future challenge that we may go through. And one thing I do that you mentioned about sharing our struggles, social media is great in terms of, and that is usually going to be more of a highlight reel. And I'm not saying that I post all the tough stuff that I'm even going through right now on there, because I don't. But it's about sharing with people who you're close to, sharing with your community. That's the place where I think, and usually sharing once you've worked through it. Some of the stuff I'm going through right now, I don't go into a lot of detail because truthfully, it's too raw and too painful right now to discuss. However, I know there will be a time where I will start to share a little bit more of that too. So I just want to make sure people understand that it's not, post all your sorrows online, because I know not everyone wants to see that too, but being able to share it in a safe space is really important for you as the person going through it and the person listening in too.
I remember this was years ago, and I had a pretty tough time in life, and I spoke to my sister, and she asked me a question. She said, "How you doing?" For the first time, I was able to open up and like tell her that actually, no, I'm not in a great place. And I remember her saying, she said, "This is the first real conversation we've had in a long time. Like, you always say how things are amazing." And I was working in like self-help and personal development, all the motivational seminars at the time. But she's like, never been able to get through to you. I've never heard actually what's going on. So I think, like you say, you don't have to like announce it from the world. "Hey, everybody, I'm having a bad day. Woe is me." But we do have to have those people that we're close to that we can actually just be frank and honest with, which I think is important. One thing you talked about there is kind of, eventually we'll move through it and there'll be another phase or chapter. One of my favorite movies that kind of highlights that is The Pursuit of Happiness, with Will Smith. And it's an amazing movie, but he has these chapters, right? Or Chris Gardner has these chapters, whoever it is. Let's go Chris Gardner, give him credit. But he said, "This part of my life I call running. This part of my life I call being an idiot." Those kind of things. And you get to the end of the movie and you can always retrospectively look back and connect the dots and go, "Oh, okay, that's why that had to happen." But when we're in the moment, it sucks. It sucks.
Yes.
And like you say, getting a different perspective is really difficult because I'm in this moment and everything is rubbish. I hate everything about life. That's the moment that I need probably the resilience piece. So what's your advice to people who are actually in that sucky part right now? What advice would you give them?
Two things. One, you already touched on when you shared about your sister, is find someone and choose these people or this person very carefully, because I talk about it where we have engines in our life and we have anchors in our life, and you want to surround yourself with the engines, and the engines would be the people who are going to help you move towards your goals, in the sense that they're going to be the more positive, the uplifting. They're going to tell the truth, though. They're not going to all sugarcoat it. But you want to choose who you share, especially when you're going through a tough time, who you share that with, because they can also be someone who can help you through it, help you move through it, help you see a different perspective in it. Or they could add some serious gasoline to that fire and it could be an explosion. And so I'm very careful, and I want to encourage people to be intentional about who you do surround yourself with, because they can help you go through it, especially if they've been through some stuff. And if they're real about the stuff that they've gone through. So that would be one thing that I think is just so important. And then the second thing is, what can you find to hold on to be grateful for, even when it is tough? Like, you're breathing. It might be as simple as that. It might be, we joked about the intro in terms of the coffee. Maybe you had a cup of coffee today. Hold on to that. Just find something. And one of the things that I've just realized over there is gratitude doesn't minimize what you're going through. It's not going to, you're still going to be in that tough stuff, but it helps you shift your perspective just for a minute. It helps you shift your emotions, helps you change your state just for that second, to give you a little bit of hope, to realize that you're going to be able to move through it. One last thing too, I would say, is move your body. Just change your state. Maybe go for a walk, go work out, put on your favorite song and dance like a crazy person in your living room, whatever, just something to change your state and your energy as well. Those would be the three things that I think are just so, there's more obviously, but those would be the top three things I would say and suggest to do. And that's what I do. The reason I was talking about boot camp, I do go to boot camp every day, even the days I don't want to, because I know it changes my state. It gives me that energy. And that's something I can hold on to. That's my little win, where I was like, yes, I got my workout in, especially again, going through some family challenges as well at this time. So find something to hold on to and get your body moving.
Yeah, I mean, the movement piece is a huge one. There's, stress and anxiety is a physical thing anyway. And so the more movement you can do, I'm the kind of gym in the morning guy before anything happens. I try and wake up at super early o'clock, but also I'll go for a walk during the day. Like at lunchtime, if I get the opportunity, I'll just get out and move, because, even like you say, it's just bit of fresh air. I'm lucky enough to live near the river, and so I can walk along the river, and it was a good, nice day. The sun is shining, and yeah, it's a little bit noisy because the cars are going past, but there's just that appreciation that you can spend a moment in nature, and then you come back and the craziness hits you in the face again, and you're back in the real world. But you've had that moment just to to get a little bit of perspective, which is good. So we're talking about this now. Here's another perspective. One of my favorite authors is a guy called Seth Godin, and he wrote a book called The Dip, and I mentioned it to you beforehand, which is this idea of strategic quitting. And I think he has a similar perspective as you, which is never quit on a bad day. He says, if it's worth persisting, you've got to go through, but you're going to go through this kind of sucky moment. What's your opinion on when we should quit versus not quit? Because sometimes it's pointless sticking at something if it's never going to end up well, or it's going to go in circles and we're never going to move anywhere. You talked about having worthy goals and things, and that's going to kind of create the resistance. But what's your take on whether we should stick or quit, and are there good times that we should quit?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you asked that. I mentioned that because when I was writing the book with the title Never Quit on a Bad Day, I could hear people being like, what do you mean? So I never quit something. And so I actually have a chapter in the book about quitting. And when you essentially should quit. Now, quitting is a very personal decision to everybody. So I'm just going to share what I've found has helped me in terms of making those decisions. And number one, I think it's also looking about quitting, and I'm using air quotes, more so transitioning into something else. So, when I decided to quit professional soccer, if you will, or transition into focusing on my career as an entrepreneur full time, I did it on a good day. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we quit when we're frustrated, we're angry, we're disappointed, we're in a negative emotional state. And that's a lot of times when we quit on something. And so looking at it, can we quit on a day where we're on a high? We're having a good day. And maybe now we've just realized that, as I just said, for me personally with soccer, it was I wanted to focus on the next chapter. And so I was more excited about transitioning into this world as an entrepreneur. I knew I still was going to play soccer. It was just that my priorities had shifted. And so I talk about it in the book in terms of when to quit. It might be if you might be quitting a lifestyle choice if it's not serving you anymore, right? And that is a very personal decision. But if it doesn't align with your future goals and you're doing something right now that doesn't align with who you want to be, your future self, it might be time to quit that. It might be time to, quit on a relationship, for example. Again, same thing if it's not serving you, or if it's maybe if you're in a situation that's causing a lot of trauma, anxiety, stress, if it's not helping you, it's time to evaluate that. And it might be time to transition to something else. From a career perspective, sometimes it might be if you, went into a career to accomplish a certain set of goals and you've done that and you're not being challenged, you're not continuing to grow, then it might be time to transition into something else again, but do it on a good day. Do it on a day where you have peace. And a lot of times you'll know that you made the right decision because you feel peaceful about it. Like I knew it was time to retire from professional soccer, and I was at complete peace with that. And so oftentimes you'll know that, versus if you do it on a bad day, then there's also sometimes a lot of regret because it's like, why did I do it on that day? So those are just some things, again, a very personal decision. It's something you may want to, again, if you have those engines around you, it might be something you want to consult with some people and some mentors, some coaches, some guides, but also really looking forward into what do you want your future life to look like? And then is what you're doing right now serving you to help you move closer to that? And if it is, then you push through that tough stuff. If it isn't, then you still push through the tough stuff, get to the other side, and then make the decision.
Yeah, I love that idea of transitioning and being able to tell the story. This is what it is, right? It's the story as to why you're changing. And if there's a positive story, it's like, I'm actively going to go and do this and engage in this part of my life now, then I think it makes the quitting process easier. I think one of the things that, a lot of people ask me about is, oh, damn, I hate my job. Thinking about getting a new job, should I get a new job? And I'm like, okay, that's curious. Let's start. The question is always, are you running away or are you running towards? I find with people who are running towards something, it's, I've got this amazing opportunity and I really want to go and do this. And they get excited about it. That's a good transition. I think that's a good way to quit. Like, we should quit when we're excited more about the next opportunity than we are about this current opportunity. If we're running away from something, what I find is that thing typically follows you and you end up in the next place and you're like so excited and you're like, whoa, how did you get here? Like, what are you still doing here? It's like, surprise, I'm going to follow you around until you deal with this. And so I like what you talked about that. It's quit on a good day. Know that you're kind of moving forwards and not kind of regressing or trying to run away from something. In your book, is there one story that surprised you? Is there one story that stands out above all of them where for you it just kind of hit you in a way where you're like, I get that. Like, I really feel that.
That's a great question. So I have right now, there's 2 books in this series. So there's Never Quit on a Bad Day. They're both titled under the same umbrella because that's the name of the series. The first one features stories from thriving entrepreneurs, and then the second one features stories from accomplished athletes. And I don't know if it's one story that jumps out to highlight just one, because there's so many. I found in doing the interviews and writing the stories and rereading and editing and all that comes out with it, I've gotten something out of every story depending where I'm at in my own journey. And that's one of the things that was really important to me with the books, is that wherever someone is at a journey, you can go back to the book and reread it and pull something new out of it. And so those are the books that I've learned the most from. And so that's sort of what I wanted to create as well too. I do think one of the biggest things, again, the theme and commonality with it, is just how grateful everybody was, even when they were going through a lot of tough stuff. And that, one of the stories, and it's more an action because it's something that everyone listening can do, and I encourage them to do, is in the Thriving Entrepreneurs book. There's a couple and they're going through a really rough moment in time. And I don't want to share all of it, but one of the things that they did that I will share is they did a video of this tough time. So they recorded it, sharing what happened, and they made a vow to themselves that they would never be in this situation again. And it's so powerful because they basically, and they started like in their way, thanking God in advance for what was going to happen and how he was going to transform their life from where they're sitting right now to where they were going to be. And so it's neat because also in the book, there's QR codes, and you can scan this QR code and see this video of them back then. And then there's also, I had QR codes in every chapter where you get a little inspirational message from that contributor, and you see them now, if you will, or last year when that book came out, and just the transformation. And it's such a neat lesson. And so I encourage people to do that for themselves, even if you are where you want to be right now, record yourself right now and declare what you are going to create. And in that present tense, and it's so powerful when we say what we want, we live it in terms of in our mind, we visualize it, we put pen to paper, and almost like writing that future letter to yourself. And they did it in video format, and it's so powerful to see. And so it's something I've done. When I heard that, I was like, what, I'm going to do that as well too. And so I recorded that video last year when I was going through some tough stuff. Even with the book coming out, there's still life happening. And it's just a cool reminder to see how far you can come when you just take a moment and when you're intentional about where you're going.
I think having that direction, having that intentionality, like you say, it gives us something to aim at. We're not just, there's a difference between, I think, resilience and mental toughness and just taking things and just not having a direction. I think I think as humans, we can deal with a lot of stuff. Like, we can have stuff pounded and piled upon us and we're able to kind of cope. But there's a difference. And I think this is resilience, is the ability to turn it around and move forwards and not just kind of get weighed down and just keep holding on to stuff. So you talked about intentionality, you talked about gratitude as a way of kind of feeling a little bit better in the moment. What are some other tactical things that, let's say I'm in a really tough spot right now, what can I be focusing on? What can I be thinking? What can I be doing that's going to help me move through this period of I guess, trial and tribulation?
Yeah, and I think it does come down to what you just mentioned as well too, but it's being intentional and realizing, what do you want your life to look like? I remember, and I share this too, I was going through a season, I was building my business. It wasn't going as quickly as I wanted it to. So financially things were tight, and it was an activity called Your Dream Day. And I've kind of gone over it many, many times over the years and have added to it and tweaked it and improved it, if you will, in ways that have worked for me. And I share this in terms, and it's something that everyone can do. And that's just like sitting with pen to paper, getting in a clear space and just writing out, what do you want your life to look like? Release all the limiting beliefs, release where you're sitting right now, and just writing. And one of the reasons I think it is so powerful is because it also does help to shift that perspective. But you have to feel that emotion of like, what do you see when you wake up in the morning? Who are you with? How do you feel personally in terms of your physical fitness, your spiritual fitness, your mental fitness? Like, and taking that all in. And the reason I say it's so powerful to do is because as you just mentioned, it's about having somewhere that you're going to, somewhere that you're moving towards. And I think that is something that so many people struggle with, is dreaming. You know, one of the review that I got that just, it hit my heart so powerfully, it was because it was someone who said they realized when they read the book how much they stopped dreaming, and the book helped them start to dream again. And that just meant so much, because when you have something that you're working towards, even when you're in a tough spot, it does help pull you towards it, because you can refocus on it. You can see what you're creating, you can see where you're headed, and start taking little steps. Even when you're going through a tough time, it might just be one thing every single day that you do just to move the needle forward a little bit. And so that would be something I would also encourage people to do, is if you don't want to record a video, that's fine. Get a journal, get a pen, piece of paper, whatever, and just start writing in present tense and really feel what you want to create your life and what you want it to look like, because there's so much power in it. And when people do this exercise and they actually start doing little activities to move themselves forward, it's incredible when they look back and see where they're at.
I found my vision board from the beginning of my bodybuilding journey the other day. And then vision boarding always used to be so cheesy and like law of attraction and things, but it's actually massively real. Not for necessarily the secret version, but it plants that seed of belief in your head that something is capable and something is possible. And if it's possible for other people and you follow the same path, then maybe it's possible for you. And the end result is going to be there. The journey, I love this, what success looks like. People think, and then there's that squiggly line of what it really looks like. As long as we understand that and we remember that it's not always going to go our way, then we can persist and we can keep going. And so for me, visualization, vision boarding, that kind of stuff, just painting the picture is so important. Like you say, that dream day exercise, giving someone something to aim for. And like you say, sometimes it's just a tiny step. Sometimes it's just knowing, actually not even moving backwards. You know, sometimes that's a win. But it's like, did I take one step to becoming that better person today? Did I take a tiny action that allowed me to get a little bit closer to that goal? Did I follow through on those habits and those promises that I made to myself? And I think that's a really powerful exercise to do, is dream day, vision boarding. And yet people sometimes look at it and go, nah, it's too simplistic. But it's I don't know, programs your attention.
Totally. And here's the thing. Okay, we can always say, nah, it doesn't work. But what if it does? Like, what really and truly, like, this is kind of my like way through life. It's like, but what if it does work? What's the downside of creating a vision board? For those people listening who are like, vision boarding, whatever, because I have vision boards too. And that's my challenge then. Okay, so it may not, but what's the worst thing that could happen if you take 2-3 hours, you do it by yourself, you get some friends, do it together, relax, have some fun, cut some pieces of paper out. Maybe you do an online one where you're finding pictures on Google, doing it in Canva, creating something, having it there. If it doesn't come true, oh well, you had a fun afternoon with some friends or by yourself. But here's the other side. What if it does? Because the powerful thing about it, it does. It may take time. It may not happen in the same timeline that we want it to. However, it does, because as you said, it plants that seed, and it's that. And there's been stuff that I haven't done a new vision board. Well, I've done smaller ones, but like a big cut it out on cardboard kind of thing in years. And the other day I just found mine, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so neat to see how it transforms in your real life. So I just encourage
do another one tomorrow.
I'm gonna do
pick my butt. I need to do because I've got a second. Like I did my bodybuilding one, but now the next one is as an author. Like and there's still, I can still feel it. There's an element, even though I keep affirming it and saying it, I'm going to be an author. There's still an element. So I need to do that process of the author vision board. All right, so that's on my to-do list for tomorrow. And also, so talking about authoring, my second book is about getting unstuck. So it's similar to this. And you mentioned the word dream, right? You mentioned the word dream is people stop dreaming. And actually, this is, my research on psychology is this is a thought process, right? We think in very restrictive ways or habitual ways. And unless we stop thinking or start thinking a different way, if we kind of think about the quick way, is, if we don't think in a different way, we're going to continue to have the same thought processes. And that opportunity, that dream, that idea never actually comes into our head. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of vision boarding and highly recommend it. So okay, cool, that's on my list for tomorrow. We are getting close to the end. I'm going to squeeze a couple more bits and pieces out of you. What is the can we build resilience outside of tough situations? Is there anything we can do to prepare for the worst? I don't want to feel negative or pessimistic, but is there anything we can do to kind of arm ourselves in advance of these things coming and getting us?
I think so. I think one of them is, be careful who you surround yourself with, being intentional about your building your community. So finding people who are uplifting, who are positive, optimistic, all those traits that can help you, especially when you are going through a tough time. And realizing it's important when you're building yourself that community is also make sure you've seen them go through some tough stuff, and how did they respond to that tough stuff? Because that's how you really find out someone's character. Because everyone can be all smiles and happy, as you said, when everything's great, but when they're going through tough stuff, how do they show up? And so being intentional, and I always say this too, is like, if you don't feel like right now you have that community, first it starts with you, or it starts with us. So be that person. Can you be the person to reach out to others and just say, hey, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? Keep going, giving them an encouraging word, letting them know that you were thinking about them. And so first it does start with us becoming that person. And if you're not that person right now, that's where it would start. I would start reading books that are going to, help you in terms of your growth. Listening to podcasts like yours, Dan, being around, it's again, turning your car into that positive place instead of listening to the news, put on a podcast or an audiobook, something that's going to help you. What are you watching? Watch YouTube. Like we have so many resources at our fingertips. So I would say be intentional about becoming the best person for the type of person you want to attract into your life, and then also being intentional about surrounding yourself and creating that community. And then just looking at, autobiographies, reading about people who have created lives of something you would want to have, and starting to learn about what did they do to push through. Because you want to have almost like these tools in your tool belt, right? You don't want to wait till all of a sudden you have, a leak in your house, and then it's like, oh shoot, I need this, I need this, I need this. It's like, have that stuff here, or know who you're going to call. In my case, I wouldn't be the one fixing it, but I have a number. So make sure you know in advance who you're going to call when you have those situations, and having those tools in your tool belt so that you can pull it out, being grateful in the good times so that okay, I can still find something to be grateful for, even in those tough stuff too. And just, again, having those resources at your fingertips. And it's a slow process. It's definitely a slow process, but it's, again, being intentional and just doing one thing every single day. Maybe you start off with listening to one podcast every single day that is going to help you move the needle forward, or reading 10 pages of a good book, or watching something.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Phoebe, for just sharing your insights and the lessons you've learned from talking to all these other people who've gone through craziness. And I'm sure you were on their list of people to call when everything hits the fan again. So make sure you keep your phone charged, because I'm sure those calls will be coming in all the time. I think the biggest thing, like you said, is whenever we dream, whenever we challenge ourselves, we set ourselves up for success, but we also set the bar pretty high, and we're going to experience adversity, challenge, resistance along the way. I think it's important to accept that that's part of the journey. And like you said, I think something in there is that nothing good ever comes from just an easy ride. We've got to, if we're going to achieve anything significant, it's going to come through adversity. And that's not just to make you annoyed. It's not just to get in your way. And just the purpose is filtering, and it filters the people who really want it from the people who just say they want it. So take it as a badge of honor, earn your stripes, I guess, and go through it and persist and be resilient, and never quit on a bad day. Phoebe, fantastic stories. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom. And this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's been fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to share, and I've learned a lot from you as well, too. So thank you for what you do.
All right. That was fun.
That was great.
Sip of coffee. There we go. And
oh, I need to get some.
Let's very quickly we'll do those again. Then I got to run. Got to go and get the little one.
For sure.
I got 9 minutes. The good news is, it's on the same block. I don't even have to cross the road. It's so easy. My life, my life is so small. I live in like about a block and a half of New York, and that's it.
Beautiful. What area of New York are you in?
We're in the Upper East Side, so 77th Street on the East, which is cool. Yeah, so I get the East River. Literally, I can just go over there. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I've only been here 3 months, but loving it a lot. Okay,
Awesome.
so let's do this. So I'll just quickly, and again, think about a kind of 30-second snippet, and that'll be pretty good.
Yeah.
I already had an amazing conversation with Phebe Trotman here on resilience and why we should never quit on a bad day. Phebe, what would be your one piece of advice for people who are having a bad day and feel like it's too much? What should they be thinking about? What should they be focusing on?
Refocus on your goals. Find what is something that makes you excited about life. Refocus on that, and then find something in this moment right now to be grateful for. It could be as small as having a cup of coffee, a phone call from a friend. Just find something that you can hold on to be grateful for.
Perfect piece of advice. There's plenty more in the full episode of the podcast. Check it out. Oh, that was slick. Well, I need to take out a little from me, but that was good. Oh, we should do more. Okay, and the next one is, what is the one thing from this episode that you think people are going to find most beneficial? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go with when we talk about quitting on a good day, because the title, like everyone always thinks that. And I think people need to start realizing it's okay to quit, transition. So yeah.
Love it. Hey, everybody, just finished an amazing podcast episode with Phebe Trotman, author of Never Quit on a Bad Day. Phebe, what's the one thing from our conversation you think people would take the most value from?
I love when we talked about when you should quit, because when people hear the title of the book, so many times it's like, well, wait, what do you mean? I can never quit something? No. And I love how you talk about it, Dan, in terms of that separation. I love how we just talk about transitioning forward and thinking about, well, when should you quit? Because if you're going to quit on a good day. And I feel like we share some good tips on what people should be thinking about if they're thinking of quitting something, or as we were talking about, transitioning into something better.
Definitely. Check out the full episode. There's so much good advice in there. Phebe, thanks again for being a guest.
Thanks so much.
All right. That was amazing. Perfect. 2 very cool snippets. I'll get those done. I'm going to run. Going to put my trainers on. This will be out in about January or so. I've got a few more bits and pieces to push out. Have you got any books coming out or any timelines that would be good for you?
No, right now I'm in family focus mode, so nothing right now. So whenever it comes out, just let me know, and then I'll be sure to tag, share, reshare it, all that good stuff.
Perfect. Well, if you need anyone to chat to, because I've been through the family stuff myself as well, give me a shout. But it was really lovely to meet you, and hope you have a good rest of the day.
So great to meet you too. Take care. Have fun on your play date.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.